Public speaking fear is vulnerability you can end in 3 steps. It is built from your nonsensical interpretations and idiotic attitudes. Remove those, and the only thing left is to prepare your speech. Here's where we are in the series. Today, Strategy 3, Ending Vulnerability in 3 steps. Strategy 3 is about ending vulnerability, or at least diminishing it, in 3 steps. First, strengthen your rational attitudes. We started this already with the philosophy of acceptance, seeing yourself and others as complex human beings who do good, bad, and neutral things, so not just bad things, which is how you tend to think when vulnerable. So in this strategy, we'll go deeper into other irrational beliefs that pull you down. Second, manage your emotions. We'll just touch this here because it deserves much more time. But remember this, not all emotions are created equal. Some are healthy, some are unhealthy. Few people realize this. Once you do, every unhealthy emotion becomes a signal, a beacon telling you there's a distorted belief behind it that you are tormenting yourself with. And third, gradually expose yourself in real life situations. When you elevate rationality and emotional management, you can expose yourself to ever more challenging situations, step by step. That means challenging, but not overwhelming. This builds evidence to you that you can face what you once fled from. And the result? You gain control of your reactions. You stop fleeing, you start facing, and that's how resilience is built. Here's a real-life example of my client who struggled with shame and anxiety in public speaking, which is the humanity's greatest imagined nightmare. In one case, right in the middle of the speech, my client froze, completely blocked, in front of a younger audience. This slide shows how we worked through the irrational attitudes via which my client paralyzed themselves. First belief was, I must always have something sensible to say. This is an absolutistic demand. Many psychological problems come from rigid demands like this. As adults, we know the world won't bend to our will, yet we still demand that it should. And that very demand is how we disturb ourselves and how we make ourselves vulnerable. Nearly everyone sometimes tortures themselves with some musts. I must know what will happen next. I must have certainty in my life. I must get married and have kids. I must get that job. But it also appears as demanding from others to behave in certain ways. For example, YouTube must promote my fantastic videos. My subscribers must love and like my presentation. People must contact me for my coaching services and other things. You get the point. So, such demandingness is the starting point of most, if not all, of our disturbances. Second belief, it's awful that I was wordless in front of everyone. Awful here means 100% bad, as if it were Armageddon. But the reality is, nobody died, nobody got sick, life went on. This is called awfulizing, and some call it catastrophizing. In essence, it is exaggerating the badness of a situation to the utmost extreme. Adversity is not just bad, it is 100% bad. Nothing could be worse than that. Third belief is I can't stand it when I get stuck like that in the speech. This is irrational, low frustration tolerance belief. We tell ourselves, we convince ourselves we can't handle it. Yet we have all survived far tougher situations in life and work. We are far more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. But if we don't see it that way, then we convince ourselves we really can't stand it. We convince ourselves that we are not resilient. And fourth belief that my client experienced was, I am stupid and I am a failure, and public speaking is useless. This is self-depreciation and labeling, and it is based on conditional self-worth. The idea that unless I meet some condition, I am not good enough. That's another major factor behind much of psychological disturbance and vulnerability. Our worth is not conditional on anything, not on performance, on success, money, looks, sex, whatever. But most people put one or more of these conditions on themselves, and with it make their life so much harder and make themselves vulnerable. Strategy 1, discussed in video number 3, addresses this fourth belief. So the result of all these 4 irrational beliefs or attitudes is intense shame and anxiety before, during, and after public speaking. And it is accompanied with self-sabotaging thoughts and actions, such as wanting to give up on delivering a speech at an important conference. Wider point on all this is that rigid and extreme attitudes like these make us vulnerable, cause us unhealthy emotion. And this slide is the first of the 2 engines that finally end your vulnerability at hand. Let's look now at the second engine, the rational response. Here is where you end your vulnerability. We will now go through 4 rational, flexible, and non-extreme attitudes that my client used to counter their irrational beliefs. The first one is philosophy of preference rather than absolutistic demand. My client said, I prefer to have something sensible to say, but it does not mean that I must always have something sensible to say. Now that is a liberating attitude if you really deeply believe in it. To strengthen this belief, my client asked, show me, where is it written that I must always have something sensible to say during speech? The answer is nowhere. It's only in my head. The second attitude is about de-awfulizing situations in life, or removing awfulizing part in them. This means acknowledging that situation is bad, but that it is not 100% bad. My client's coping attitude was this: yes, it sucks when I self-block, but it's not the end of the world. In other words, it is not 100% bad. It is not an Armageddon. It is perhaps only 5% bad. The third belief is that of high frustration tolerance, as opposed to the irrational low frustration tolerance. My client realized this, quote, yes, it's frustrating to get stuck in a speech, no doubt about it, but it's tolerable, and it's worth tolerating it because I can learn the public speaking skill and benefit immensely from it. The key word here is benefit. The client realized not just that they can withstand the hardship, but also that they can profit from tolerating the discomfort. Not just that gaining public speaking skill will do you much good in career and for your financial well-being, but it will also contribute to conquering social anxiety and probably improve your love life. like approaching potential emotional partners. So when we clearly see the benefits of withstanding the discomfort, we are more likely to arm ourselves with higher frustration tolerance. And the last one is the attitude of unconditional self-acceptance rather than self-depreciating labeling from the previous slide. That is, as my client said, yes, I had a self-block, but that doesn't make me stupid. It only makes me fallible, imperfect, and I can learn the skill. So my client stubbornly refused to label themselves in negative ways just because they did something bad. And this can also put you in a better mental state to find the best solutions to life's inevitable challenges. Let's name these 4 attitudes. The first one is philosophy of preference. It counters our juvenile demands we impose on ourselves and on others. The second one is de-awfulizing, or recognizing that while the adversities are bad, they're not 100% bad. It can always be worse. The third one is an attitude of high frustration tolerance. The position that we can withstand adversity, and it is worth it for us to tolerate the discomfort rather than run away from it. And the fourth one is the philosophy of and skill of unconditional self-acceptance, the refusal to rate ourselves as bad when we do something bad. Let's now turn to the last slide to compare the effects of our irrational and rational attitudes and what they have on our decisions and emotions. Let's first start with the question, why should we end vulnerability or decrease it? Well, because it changes everything about how you move through life, through life's challenges. Let's look at the shift. Clients started with an intense, paralyzing shame and anxiety and was about to convince themselves to give up, which would have limited their career. Instead, by replacing irrational beliefs with rational attitudes, it converted shame to disappointment. Disappointment still stings, but doesn't break you like shame. Disappointment keeps you moving, facing reality, and advancing. And so clients convinced themselves to continue with discomfort, to continue with exposure, to unpleasant public speaking, to gain the skill, and with it, to extend their career to the previously uncharted domain. So instead of giving up, you keep exposing yourself step by step, and each time you grow stronger. That's the payoff. Reducing your vulnerability means gaining resilience, and resilience is what allows you to actually pursue and achieve your goals. Don't be a better version of yourself. That's an empty goal. Have specific goals. Remove obstacles like your vulnerabilities and achieve your goals. This is how you end your fear of public speaking and other vulnerabilities. And in the next video, we apply reframing and assertiveness to dismantle fear of rejection and turn that discomfort into leverage. And if you want to work on this more deeply, the Power Sequence course is on the screen.